I think you could still have a big market approach to doing things in a smaller community.
I can't wrap my head around everything that you do.
I like the adrenaline rush that directing gives you.
That's a quarter of a century, everybody.
The band's called Twisted Chrome.
Nobody talks to you about that in journalism school, do they?
I don't think so.
An inside look at the people in front of and behind the cameras at NTV on this episode of Inside NTV.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Inside NTV here on the NTV News YouTube channel. And this is the show that we try to introduce you to all of the on-camera and off-camera folks at NTV and former NTVers. And currently I am on the road here in Phelps County with a former NTVer, former general manager of NTV, Ron Tillery, correct?
That's right. I was station manager.
Station manager.
General manager was Bob Gordon.
Ah, that's true. That's correct.
Yeah.
Good point. So when were you station manager there?
1986 to 1990.
Can you tell us what that job entailed back from 86 to 90 as station manager?
Just about anything that popped up. Our original goal was to revitalize the station and bring it into the current day at that time, because it had been owned and managed by a group that hadn't really reinvested into the station, into the community, and into its employee base. So we were coming into a situation where we wanted to revitalize the station, upgrade its performance, upgrade all of the support for the station employees.
So you kind of laid the foundation for where we're at now, pretty much.
Tried to, a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
What brought you to NTV to begin with?
Well, I'd known Bob Gordon for several years prior to coming to NTV. He was vice president and general manager of Scripps Howard Station in Cincinnati.
Okay.
We met then. He tried to hire me to come to Cincinnati in the early 80s. I was in Omaha at the time at the ABC affiliate in Omaha.
Okay.
And things just didn't work out. It wasn't the right opportunity for me at that time. And I left Omaha to assume a station manager position in Amarillo, Texas. A couple of years later, Bob had left the Scripps Howard group and wanted to buy this television station in Nebraska. And since I had a history of being in Nebraska for a period of time, he called me and asked if I'd be his partner. So
Nice.
That's how it turned out.
Oh, are you from Nebraska natively then?
No, grew up in Kansas, but in
Okay.
broadcasting, you tend to move
Yeah.
around a little
Mhm.
bit. And I started my career down in South Texas. Went from South Texas to Oklahoma City and then back to South Texas. And then out of there, got hired to run the program and promotion department of KETV in Omaha.
Okay, there you go. The number one station in Omaha.
Is it?
I believe, still ratings-wise, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. So you get to NTV in 86. What's the first thing you decide you need to do?
Scoop snow. we had back-to-back blizzards in late March.
Oh, my goodness.
Early April, I think. And I had a long driveway. I remember that quite vividly. So coming from South Texas,
Yep.
or Amarillo, Texas at the time, we didn't have that kind of snow buildup. So, but right away, we dove into intense weather reporting and storm reporting, that sort of thing. That's
Nice.
always been an important part of well, any station, but particularly in the Midwest, in Nebraska, that's an important part of what we do.
Are there
in
any
business.
on-air names that come to your mind whenever I go, hey, who do you remember from between 86 and 90, your time there?
Well, of course, Bob Geiger was our weatherman at the time. And to tell you the truth, and to be perfectly honest, we weren't sure Bob Geiger was the guy
Okay.
for us at the time. I remember one of the first calls I fielded about our weathercasts were some elderly woman complaining that Bob Geiger's dour sense of humor was just simply not appropriate for the airwaves. And But we quickly learned when we started doing more in-depth conversations with viewers that they not only accepted him, they had embraced him and his whole persona, which was very, very different. But I remember one of the things that we ultimately had to do, because he refused to comply, was he had an orange leisure suit that he just loved and would wear multiple times a week. And that was a throwback to the 70s. And we simply had to confiscate the leisure suit and put him in more contemporary suits and clothing. So,
Is there any chance that suit's at the Nebraska Prairie Museum?
it should be. It should be. Anybody that was with us at that time will remember that situation. Sometimes Bob would show up, would have forgotten to shave or this or that. So it was very important that our production crew paid attention.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I got to Nebraska. I got to Holdridge in 2014. I got to Nebraska in 2007, and I've heard about Bob Geiger since I've gotten here.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's the name, I think, when it comes to, like, if you go past Seth and Colleen,
Yeah,
it's Bob Geiger.
Bob
It's the
Geiger.
name that you hear a lot.
We brought in some good talent from outside the market too, but I think Bob is the enduring, most notable name on the weathercasts and the newscasts at the time. Remember, Bob Bowie joined us, who
Yeah.
had a long history at KHAS.
Mhm.
That was what preceded. What's it called?
Local 4.
Local
Yep.
4 now. And Bob was a fixture in this market and a very, very accomplished broadcaster. Like Bob a lot.
And that's another name that I've heard a ton. And
Yeah.
it was a big deal when he passed away as well. A lot of people were upset and really respected him.
Yeah, yeah.
Another name that I'm thinking of that I've heard was Al Zobel during
Al.
your time?
That's right. We hired Al, and originally as a sportscaster, and
Mhm.
then later he became newscaster and news director. So Al was a very, very good broadcaster, very capable in everything he tried to do. And it was a real heartbreak to see him struggle as he did with cancer later on in life.
So you were there from 86 to 90. What then caused you to decide you wanted to leave in 1990?
Well, we had a situation where we did the reverse of a good businessman. We didn't buy low and sell high. We bought high and had to sell low. The market conditions at that time simply were really, really rough. Broadcasting always seems to be in a transitionary period. And at that time, there was a transition in the business, and we had to sell, and unfortunate set of circumstances. So we sold the station, and I left the business.
Can you walk me through then? Obviously, it's 2024 now. It was 1990 then.
Yeah.
Where did you go from there to get to here?
Well, had a family that I became rooted in this area, which is maybe unusual in the business, but I wanted to raise a family here. We really felt at home in Kearney. And so I left the business, entered into economic development, which a friend encouraged me to do. And so I stayed in Kearney for another 17 years. And then I got a call out of the blue. A former broadcast associate had bought a group of television stations in Grand Junction, Colorado, and asked if I could help him turn those around. And so I re-entered the business, had a little bit of a broadcasting itch still, and the kids were out of the house. So I re-entered the business, went out to Grand Junction, Colorado, and we did a turnaround, and he quickly sold the stations, and we doubled his money.
Oh, wow.
In that endeavor, so I was pleased. And then got out of the business again because the kids were starting to have grandbabies.
There you go.
So I came back here.
Nice. Now here is Phelps County in Holdridge. Yeah. Tell us what you do here.
I run the economic development organization for Phelps County. It's called Phelps County Development Corporation. We support businesses to grow, expand, to invest, and we recruit new businesses in. And you may have heard about a recent success story that we had, a small little $5.5 billion project. So
Which
really
we're
happy.
keeping an eye on that too,
Yeah.
because that's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's Nebraska's largest ever.
Yeah. And how? I mean, not to get too newsy, because this is more about you,
Yeah.
but when do we think that's going to take a next step?
It's taking steps every day right
Okay.
now. The project has got a lot of moving parts. We're dealing with officials at the Department of Energy, USDA. We haven't started the state permitting process yet, but we're putting all the pieces together necessary to begin permitting at the state level next year.
What is the two questions? What's the hardest thing about your current job, and what's your favorite thing about your current job?
The hardest thing is my favorite. It's dealing with organizations and people to help bring everybody together to get behind a project. That's not always the way it works out, but I enjoy the relationship building and the essentially the diplomacy part of the job.
And you've got in Holdridge, I believe it's 5,600 is population, somewhere in the
about-
neighborhood. And then county,
Just under 10,000.
Okay, so it's certainly not the biggest county in the
Nope.
state, but
Nope.
you've got a lot going on
Yeah.
here. So that obviously keeps you busy.
Yes, and enjoy it too. I'm past the age where many people retire, but I am having the most fun I've ever had in my life.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe some days it doesn't even feel like work.
No, I show up, have a good time.
That's great. And you plan on doing this for as long as you can, I'm assuming.
Well, until they don't think I'm doing a good enough job anymore. But yeah, something like that.
Got to get the $5.5 billion project going.
That's right. I want to be there when that happens. That's
Awesome.
a few years down the road.
Alrighty. Ron Tillery, I appreciate you giving us a few minutes.
Thank you, Chris.
And we'll let you get back to lunch.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We'll have another episode of Inside NTV coming up next week.
And to all my former NTVers,